A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to listen to Jesus. But the Pharisees and scribes began to complain, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So to them he addressed this parable. What man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, would not leave the 99 in the desert and go after the lost one until he finds it? And when he does find it, he sets it on his shoulders with great joy. And upon his arrival home, he calls together his friends and neighbors and says to them, "Rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep." I tell you, in just the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over the 99 righteous people who have no need of repentance. Then he said, "A man had 2 sons, and the younger son said to his father, 'Father, give me your share of the estate that should come to me.' So the father divided the property between them. After a few days, the younger son collected all of his belongings and set off on a distant country, where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. When he had freely spent everything, a severe famine struck the country, and he found himself in dire need. So he hired himself out to the local citizens, who sent him to his farm to tend the swine. And he longed to eat his fill of the pods on which the swine fed. Coming to his senses, he thought, 'How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough to eat? But here I am dying from hunger. I shall get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against you, and I have sinned against heaven. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' The father ran to his son and embraced him and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But the father ordered his servants, 'Quickly, bring the finest robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet.' Then the celebration began. Now the older son had been out in the field, and on his way back, he neared the house. He heard the sound of music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what this might mean. The servant said, 'Your brother has returned, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound.' He became angry, and when he refused to enter the house, his father came out and pleaded with him. He said to his father in reply, 'Look, all these years I served you, and not once did I disobey your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to feast on with my friends. But when your son returns, who swallowed up all your property with prostitutes, for him you slaughter the fattened calf.' The father said to him, 'My son, you are always here with me. Everything I have is yours. But now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and is found.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Please be seated. In the first reading today, we see a side of God that isn't often depicted in the Bible. We see an angry God. And just who or what is God angry at? He's angry at his own people, the children of Israel. And he is so displeased with them that he is ready to disown them. And we get a flavor of that in the very first sentence of the reading, when God tells Moses, "Go down at once to your people." It's kind of like when a father is upset at one of his children, and he starts the conversation with his wife by saying, "Your child." something similar to that. Now we know from the scriptures that when God talks about the Israelites, he refers to them as my people or my chosen people. But not today. He is so fed up with them that he is just about to exact the ultimate punishment on them. And we know that God's nature is to love. But we also know that God can become angered. And it's that God today who is furious with his people when, after delivering them from slavery and bondage in Egypt, what do? They grumble, they complain, and then the ultimate disrespect. They worship their own false god, their own idol that they have made. And what's really remarkable in this reading, the first reading today, is that Moses is talking to God like one parent talks to another parent, trying to calm him down. Moses reminds God of his relationship, his connection with the people, and of his long-range goal that God has with the nation of Israel. And then Moses asks, he actually pleads with God to change his mind and not to destroy the people. And as we read, God does recall his connection, his relationship with the people, and he relents his anger. Now, I'm sure that from time to time, many of us have been just about that angry with someone. And in our anger, we might say some really terrible things to the people. And those people might be, many times it is, the people that we love and care about the most. But usually after a while, we calm down and we remember what is important in our relationship. And we relent in our anger. At least that's how it should be in the perfect world. But sometimes we are so angry with someone that we just refuse to let it go. We might feel that the person is so evil, so mean-spirited, so despicable, that they just don't deserve our forgiveness. But then we should realize who we are. Should remember our Christian and spiritual bearing. And try to strive to do our best to show love, compassion, and forgiveness to others. In the gospel reading today, a young man wanted to go out and experience life. That's the expression we use today, right? Experience life. See what there is to offer out there. So he tells his father that he's going to leave home and ask his father for his portion of the inheritance. And he leaves. And as it says in the scriptures, the young man squandered all of his money on wild living. You can only imagine what that wild living was. But the young man returned home in utter shame, in utter dejection, in just utter humiliation. But as soon as his father saw him, the father's hurt and anger vanished and was replaced by that love, compassion, and forgiveness. And our purpose, the purpose that God calls us to, is to care and love for others. To change our minds about the harm that we may want to bring to others that we feel have injured us. To relent our anger and to be God's example on earth. God gives all of us the opportunity to start fresh each and every day. The question for us is, should we do any less for others? Please stand. In faith, let us together profess, I believe.
One God, the Father Almighty, maker of